right, Alicia. So your artist statement, to start there, talks about just your love of basketball, that you don't play basketball, but you love it, that the Grizzlies and the Warriors are your favorite teams. And then you kind of take us through a bit of a story on that. So to push your artist statement, I would encourage you to talk about why you like basketball. I think that's what's going to be most interesting about this. If it's something that maybe you played when you were younger and it bonded you with your friends, or maybe a parent played basketball, so you looked up to them and that's what got your interest in basketball. Or maybe it was an escape from everything to be able to watch a basketball game. It doesn't matter what the reason is, but the goal is that we understand more about you and why you're interested in basketball. So I'd encourage you to push that artist statement a little bit more onto the personal side. And then you wrote, let's see, this would have been on Sunday, that you were going to add more pictures on Monday, but I'm still not seeing those. So this is going to be your critique. I'm not going to do a second critique when you turn in more images. But yeah, you need to turn in 8 images in order to get credit for this assignment. So we'll start off looking at these technically first. So here you're at ISO 100, 100, 100, 100. So that looks good. That's what we want, is to keep the ISO as low as possible. You don't want to do that to the point that you're not able to get sharp images. Like here, if you're at 2 seconds, then you might want to change your ISO so that you have a faster shutter speed. But let's look at all of these first. So it looks like you're at f10, f14, and f11. And you always have a long shutter speed. So here you're at 1/10 of a second. When we look at that, it looks like it's nice and sharp though. So maybe you were on a tripod here, but you're photographing a TV screen. So instead of f10, you can open up your aperture. So you could shoot this at what does your lens go to? 3.5? Yeah, f3.5. And then you wouldn't have to have such a slow shutter speed. So you would be able to handhold it and you wouldn't have to deal with camera shake. Here you're at f14 at 15 seconds, so a really long shutter speed. Again, this is looking much sharper than other images you've turned in, so that's really encouraging to me. But f14 gives you more depth of field and gives you less light. So if you wanted to have a faster shutter speed, you could open up your aperture again from f14, let's say that's 16 because then I know the numbers, then you'd go to 11, 8, 5.6, 3.5. So that's 4 stops of light. And then you could have that much faster of a shutter speed, right? So instead of 15 seconds, you'd go to 7 to 3 to 1.5 to 2/3 of a second, or 3/4 of a second. So you'd have more latitude, more space to not have to have these really long exposures if you open up your aperture. Here again, 15 seconds just doesn't seem necessary, so opening up that aperture. But then here you have that f11, which makes more sense here because you want more of this image in focus, but you have it at 2 seconds. And this is significantly overexposed. You can see all of that area is getting blown out. So you would want to have a faster shutter speed here just so we can see the basketball hoop and it's not getting blown out. This image, different than this image, does look like you handheld it and it is very blurry. So this image you would want to adjust and set up on a tripod in order to get a sharp image. The light for your images, here you're just photographing the TV screen. Here it looks like it's probably indoor lighting. Here we're just looking at a basketball. And you have such a long exposure that I'm wondering if you're actually shooting this one indoors. And then here, this is the only image that you're using natural light. And you can see by using natural light, you have the fastest shutter speed here. Natural light generally is going to give you the most light in a situation. So utilizing that more often would probably make for faster shutter speeds. The composition of all of your images is pretty loose. It doesn't seem like you're um, taking a lot of time to frame everything up. Like here, it seems like this bush doesn't seem to be needed in the image. It's not adding anything to the image. And then here, the car's not adding anything to the image, but maybe pulling back a little bit, showing the side of the house and maybe where you're able to play basketball, that area in front, that would probably work better to tell that narrative. And then here, the basketball is on the floor, but then it looks like there's some chairs behind it. So thinking about how every little aspect of the image is adding to that overall narrative is important. Here, if your brother's playing his basketball game, would it be nice to show a little bit of him so we know why you're caring about this basketball video game? What is the importance of it? That would fill out that story a little bit more. So as you think about your other 4 images, I want you to think about opening up your aperture, setting up on a tripod for every image that's over like 1/30th of a second for exposure, and just carefully composing your image, not cropping out the corner, and make sure that everything that's involved in your images is adding to your overall theme, that every little aspect is telling the story that you want to be telling.